continuously. Hello, everyone. Good evening. We are here for the latest event of the Power BI User Group Italy. I don't know what it is, 2025, 2026 season, probably. We said it is the latest event of our summer. After this event, we're going to take a month or so, a little break, and then we're coming back in September with new streaming events, new technical workshops, new events also in Turin, our bi-monthly events in Turin organized by Victor. And then in the late of October, we're going to have the Ticino conference, as you probably already know. We're going to advertise it as well during this introduction. So latest event, we are here with Francesco Marino. He's data analytics platform lead, associate director, and team manager, and he also has a technical newsletter that he creates. He works in the Swiss banking sector, so he's going to teach us today a little bit about how to improve the user experience in the BI departments in large corporate environments. We already did a similar event last week or a couple of weeks ago with Andrea Letoni of our community, meaning not a strictly technical event, but an event that teaches us how to improve the role and the perceived quality and value of the BI team in our company, so to speak. And I think that these kinds of events, we're going to propose more and more of these in the future. Because they're really interesting. They are not heavy technical, but they are really, really interesting in order to help us in improve as professionals, not only as people that write code, but as professionals in general. So I'm going to leave more time for sure to Francesco to present himself later. In the meantime, I will go over the usual set of slides that we usually present and that many of you already know by heart, basically. So, who are we? We are a community that is dedicated to business intelligence, data engineering, SQL, ETL, Power BI, of course. I almost forgot that we called SQL Power BI User Group Italy because we do event about so many things. So if you like these technologies and you work, well, mostly in Italy, you are an Italian speaker, for sure join the community. If you're not an Italian speaker, as you can see, we also do events that are not in Italian, that are in English, for our international audience. And tonight is one of those events. Simone is already connected with us, so ciao Simone. You can find all our social media channels, in the link tree that I will post on both YouTube and LinkedIn. So as like Simone did, please say hi if you're on LinkedIn, on YouTube, so we know that you are there. We will post the link tree with all our socials. You can join, notification channels. You can join a group chat on Telegram. You can join Meetup if you want to follow. And of course, you have all the links to the Ticino conference, which they are all there, whether you want to present. There are still 2 days to propose a session for the Ticino conference. The deadline is on Friday. And then we're going to do the selection for the conference. But also, if you want to sponsor, maybe you want to contribute to the event, or you have a company that would like to contribute to the event, or to register. Well, I was almost forgetting registering. Besides speaking and sponsoring, for sure we need attendees. So if you want to come, you'll find all the links in our link tree. We also have a GoFundMe if you want to donate to the community to cover expenses for StreamYard or other things. We'll be happy. And we have an ongoing call for speakers also for this community. We have the Ticino call for speakers, which is the most important one at the moment for the next 2 days for sure, because we are, drafting our lineup for the event. But we also have the ongoing call for speaker, which, by the way, Francesco was the first to apply when we created the call for speaker back in, I don't even remember when, like probably January or December or something like that. And yeah, we finally managed to do this session. So we're really happy. We're really happy for this. Community is open to everyone, for sure. Anything that you want to present. You see that lately we are leaning towards more of like I said at the beginning, non-heavy technical events. So also personal experience is really, really important. Sometimes people are, a little bit scared of presenting at these communities because, but you need to be some kind of expert in some very specific niche technical thing that you and only you know about, but it's not true. What is really important is hearing everyone's experience in this field, what you do, how you do it, because personal experience is unique. So yeah, any kind of session that you want to present, please apply to our call for speakers. We'll be happy to host you and to have you at our community. So thank you. I will share the link tree. And of course, do not forget our conference on the 30th of October, Cine Data Conference in Acer in Bioggio, near Lugano in Switzerland, in the south, let's call it Italian part of Switzerland. I don't know if Swiss people like let's call it Italian part of Switzerland, but it's how I always call Ticino. And yeah, so that's it. So I'm gonna leave the stage to Francesco, which I didn't even ask, like, how are you? And I will give you the stage to present the session.
Good. Should I start? Okay, perfect.
Yep, sure.
Can you hear me? All good?
Maybe fine.
Okay, perfect, good. So, hi everybody, I'm Francesco Marino, and yesterday we'll present a bit of, say, improving the business intelligence user experience in corporate environments. Is not something, let's say, I'm not giving a lesson today, so it's just my suggestion, something that sometimes works for me. It might not work some other times. So feel free also to have, let's say, to share your experience or have a question anytime. Personally, I'm Italian, coming from Sicily, then moved to Turin for university, now in Switzerland. Husband and father of a toddling baby. He is now almost 1 year old, so it's funny period. And servant 2 cats. I liked, or mostly liked it in the past. Now time is a bit less, mostly time with my wife and reading a lot. Scuba diving is one of my favorite hobby if I don't do much, and just share a bit what I learn. I don't want to speak much more about me. On the professional side, mostly data analytics platform lead in a Swiss bank, and from this year also Microsoft certified trainer, mostly focus again Power BI and a bit of Fabric. My expertise is Power BI, but again, working now in different projects, then you get knowledge about different, let's say, topics. And one thing is important for me is like I like technology. I'm a tech in some way, but on the other side, sometimes I see that techie people focus a lot on technology. Sometimes it's too important to invest a bit more on, let's say, how to have some impact with technology. So this, I think, focus on sometimes what I speak about. And I write a technical newsletter called Better Data, and also organize a conference in Switzerland. Yes, mostly related to Power BI and Fabric topics, but also data engineering and, let's say, similar topics that are now covered by the Power BI user group Italy. Good. Let's go directly to the presentation. The title is, I think, is clear. Again, it's just my experience. I'm not here to teach anything. Some of those things might not work at all in some other environments. It's just what I think is useful for me. A bit of background. Often there is a lot of focus, I think, on business intelligence data visualization, about what is the best visualization to show some data, what is the best way to visualize this and this, and how can I design the dashboard. And this is, I mean, this is perfect. This is something we really need to focus on. But on the other side, the single user interface of a single report is not enough when we manage a platform. In my case, I manage a platform, or I manage a platform from several years especially about Power BI. So the user interface of a single report is not enough. And we need to think a bit more holistically, not only about using the reports, but using the platform itself. For me, in general, using, let's say, improving the user experience mostly means three things that might be not the same for the rest, but for me means that for the users of my platform, it's easy to find what they're looking for. For a single report, might means, okay, it's easy to find the kind of information they are looking of. The second one is easy to find a contact of a person that can help you. Again, for final user, might be, okay, I miss this functionality. They want to know who the person that can add this functionality is. Especially in corporate environment, it's not always clear who is the person that can help you. Maybe you just find the tool, you use it, but you don't know who is behind. So in this case, find a contact person is quite useful. And the third one is, again, find an easy way to get a potential issue solved. So when I say user experience, in my case, and this presentation is about later, is yes, it's mostly about try to make those three things easy to do for the final user of the platform. Just one point, please stop me if you have any question. In the meantime, I'm happy to, let's say, to answer. Also, Alessandro, for you. Good. Other things that is quite important for me is, I mean, I focus a lot like user journey, because we say generally like users are not all the same, especially for a platform. So a user of platforms, maybe we can call it stakeholder of the platform, might be the management that are sponsoring the platform itself. The user journey is different than the single user that is using one single report. Or you might have pro users that use the platform still in a different way than management or the standard user. So every user is different. So for each user, we need to have a different user journey, or we need to imagine a different user journey. I mean, sometimes we don't have the time to focus on this one, but if possible, at least for the most important type of users. In my case, as a BI platform, is mostly to divide the different the user in different user personas. Mostly what I consider is the report users, then we have the citizen developers, then we have the management, the developers, and the technical support. I think I will go now a bit one by one, so we can see, let's say, those user personas, who they are, what they care. Good. In my case, the first type of users is report users. Normally, they are those standard, say, report users. They are read-only user of other reports. They just go on a Power BI reports, they open it, they slice and dice the data, they click filters, they maybe interact a bit. So they're just standard users. What they want to know is just know how to use the reports. This is not always straightforward. Maybe which reports are available because they get access to something, but when they need something else that might be already available, or if there is something that is not working, they want to know who to contact or how to get the issue solved, and so on. Or sometimes it's like they have almost all the functionality, but they miss this killer functionality they need, and they don't know who to contact. So this is what the report users normally need. The second type, in my case, is citizen developers. So they are like report users, but a bit more advanced. So they don't only consume reports that are already available. They might want to create new reports based maybe on the data that are from existing reports. They develop things by themselves. They want maybe a small space for themselves, a workspace, and so on. So in this case, they want to know how maybe to use data from existing report, how the development experience look like, how they can, I don't know, learn new best practice, etc. So it's similar as report user, but a bit more towards developers. Another type of user for me is the management. So they use the BI platform, but they're also interested in the value this BI platform brings. So they want to know sometimes, for example, which reports are available, what is the value of these reports create. I mean, value of a report sometimes is difficult to measure, but at least they want to high level understand what, let's say, what is useful, what is not. Maybe how many of the user of the platform are there, how much the platform are used, etc. Maybe who is the team behind the platform, because maybe they are sponsoring the platform itself. and in general, which are the functionality that are offered, because maybe they could, I don't know, for the same say for the same budget, they can have more functionality that at the moment are not used yet. Another type of users are the developers. So developers, in my case, for me, are also kind of users, because again, it's the platform what I provide as a service is not just a single report. In this case, maybe developers for a big team, they want to know which are the development standard. So if there are several templates, which are the preferred authentication methods, how deployment works, how is the governance model, access management, etc., etc. So it's very nice that we consider also the developers are kind of users, because they need to have a good user experience when they develop new reports. And the last one is the technical support. This is not a type of roles that is available in every company. In some big companies, or in, let's say, many big companies, the technical support is divided from the development team. So mostly you have these kind of teams that do the first level of second level support for simple issue for users. So in this case, they want to know more or less how the platform look like, which are the common issue, and how they can solve most of the common issues. So they might not be expert of the platform itself, because they maybe support hundreds of applications, but they want to know how to solve issues and which are the most common issues. So coming back to the main topics, each user is different, and they might have different user journey, not at the level of a single report, but at the level of the BI platform itself. Good. So here, mostly I try to provide 3 examples on how to improve, let's say, the user experience, or what it was mostly working for me. They are very simple examples. It's not rocket science at all. It's not technical at all. It's very simple. So this is what I'm trying to do. I don't use all of them all the times. Sometimes useful, sometimes not. But I think overall is they are good best practice. The first one is very simple, not available in every company, but I saw at least in 5 to 10 companies, is mostly some short links, mostly internal short links. Let's make an example. I'm interested on knowing which are all the Power BI reports for the finance team. I can just write link/finance BI, and I go to the Power BI app where I have all the links of the finance BI reports in this case. So it's just a short link. It's just a redirect link. So it's useful for the users, because sometimes they have too many bookmarks. So sometimes it's just easier to write down the short links. On the other side, for us on the platform management, it might be useful for technical reason. In my case, for example, when I had to do some migration of reports, or maybe sometimes also the documentation of the reports, that you need to change the URL. And then in this case, you don't say you change the URL behind, but the URL for the users is the same. So you just redirect to the, let's say, to the new documentation page, for example. In this case, you avoid any downtime. Again, it's not something that you should become crazy in creating a new short link for everything. Otherwise, the admin work start to become huge. But I think in specific use case can be, I think, very nice. Good. The second things that I think is a bit of ad hoc trainings. In this case, ad hoc trainings is it's just not the standard trainings. So what happens normally after we do the deployment of a reports, we just don't do trainings where we explain how the reports works, but we try to understand again which are the different user journey. I think this is why I was focusing a bit on this one. Not every user is the same. So let's make an example. I have a TCO report. TCO stands for total cost of ownership of applications. So each application has a cost for server, for maybe the people that are working there, for the database that is used, etc., etc. So we might have different type of user. The first one might be the single application owner. The second one might be the application owner of maybe of a specific business area. And the third one might be the let's say the finance manager of the whole company. They have 3 use cases. The first one is only interested in knowing about the cost of a single application. The second one about the application of one specific business area, so maybe which application costs the most. And the third one, maybe they don't care at all about the application itself, but they care about the component because maybe they can reduce the cost of the license. So in this case, they don't care about viewing at application level, they care about viewing at, say, license level or service use level. So in this case, you cannot go through the dashboard in the same way because they have different needs. So sometimes it's easy to build a dashboard in a way that everybody can slice and dice the way the data they want it. Sometimes it is not. So different user journey means also explaining things in a different way. The second one is, the other point is the goal is to have kind of self-explanatory report. Again, this is not always possible. Sometimes because, especially for example with Power BI, you have out-of-the-box functionality. Just think about slicers that sometimes you need to click Control to have double selection on the slicers. So for some users it might be intuitive, for other not. You can also switch. Sometimes in some reports work in some way, in other reports work in another way. So we try our best to do the reports self-explanatory, but it's not always possible. And the last one is each user has different experience. So sometimes the same number means different things for different people, or sometimes they see two reports, they maybe think it's the same thing, but in the end the numbers means two different things. So again, it's important to do ad hoc trainings where we go step by step for each type of users and we explain what the things means and how they can achieve what they need with the final reports. And yes, so this is, let's say, the second best practice that I use when we deploy reports. And then I think I can focus on the last one, that is about good documentation. In my case, I divide the documentation into two parts. The first one is single report documentation, and the second one is platform documentation. So on the single report documentation, yes, it's a bit of a matter. It's a bit related to user interface. So one example can be a custom tooltip. So this, for example, in Power BI is quite useful. So you can have this help tooltip where you can show some information. This is quite useful, especially when you have ambiguous KPI or a dimension measures that you want to explain what they precisely means. In this case, I show a help tooltip, but honestly, you can have a text box somewhere, or you can, you can decide whatever you want. But I think it's important, especially for reports that are widely used, to explain at least the numbers that might be ambiguous. So custom help tooltip is often my way, but of course there are other ways. And another part that is, I think, very important for single report documentation is mostly a report documentation. Normally, what I do is I create like A4 page, more or less in one report that I just call documentation, where I explain a bit what the more or less the report is, with the target audience. For example, if it's import mode, what is the refresh frequency, which are the contacts. Sometimes, mostly I put IT owner and business owner because they can answer to different questions. IT owner is mostly about, yes, technical question on how, let's say, connection to data source, while business owner is about why it was selected to use these metrics instead of these other one metrics, or if you want to add additional functionality. So this is why the contacts. One thing is how to get access to this report. Again, different company can give access to Power BI report to any application via, for example, internal authentication systems. So sometimes you cannot just approve the access via Power BI, but you need to request specific rights somewhere. And this might be useful if you have new colleagues joining. So if you go on the documentation page, you can suggest to new colleagues what they might need to request. Other things can be just, for example, the definition of the metrics you define. So some metrics are really defined only in the report. It's not possible to put all the definition in the page, otherwise it become too clunky. And then you just then explain here on the definition of the let's say report documentation page. So yes, this was I, let's say, normally try to do when I put a bit on the report documentation. But again, business intelligence platform is not only a single report. Again, it's again about the platform itself. So we also have platform documentation. One of the platform documentation I always try to create is a list of reports where you have more or less the same information about the report documentation page I was writing before. So report name, description, target audience, which are the data source, data frequency, maybe the data confidentiality is very important, or the data owner, maybe the status because it's still maybe in testing phase, or it may be in production and so on, and maybe also the link to the reports. This is quite useful, especially for different type of users. One is, again, often the management, they want to know what is available. Sometimes it's just new just report users. They want to know which are all the reports available that maybe they don't have access yet. And this mostly work as, let's say, a report catalog. Of course, there are other ways to do it, data table. And I think especially now with LLM, sometimes, and let's say connected with Power BI API, or let's say now Fabric API, you can have this kind of documentation automatically updated. Honestly, this is one of the projects I'm currently working on, so not specific for this kind type of documentation, but getting documentation automatically written by, let's say, by AI for, let's say, at platform level. Moving forward, we have some additional platform documentation. So the first one was the type of just catalog of reports, but then you need to have also platform documentation. The platform documentation I mostly divided again into three parts. The first one is some technical documentation. So it's mostly high-level platform architecture. So which are the data source, which are the different environment, how the access management work, the security setup, mostly, yes, technical accounts, which kind of license are we using, which are the tenant settings, some data flows, etc., etc. Also a bit of the operating model. So who does what and where. So what are the developers, how the deployment process works, how they can get access if something broke, who should I contact, etc., etc. And then if there is some non-issue with a potential solution or workaround, and yes, the support process. Again, for this one, it's quite difficult to track all those cases, changes, if you have even a small platform. So yes, write documentation which is useful for others. It does make sense to just write and write and write. I mean, the documentation by definition is outdated. But again, maybe LLM with a smart setup can support a bit on this use case. So I say that for platform documentation, we might have three type of documentation. The first one is technical documentation. The second one, in my case, might be developers and citizen developers documentation. So in this case, as we say, citizen developers and developers are users of the platform itself. They need to know what is the best way to develop maybe new reports in our current environment. They need to know the deployment process, if they can use some reusable assets, how they can access the data source, which are the most preferred authentication method or allowed authentication method, etc., etc. So in this case, it's useful to have kind of initial, can be onboarding documentation for new developers or citizen developers they want to develop new reports. Again, citizen developer and IT developers can have different needs. This coming back to the topic of user journey. So they don't need always to follow the same best practice. Sometimes, for example, version control for business use might be, I don't know, difficult, while for IT developers is the standard. So again, you might need to understand what is the best way to guide users in your platform. And I would say that then the last type of documentation, right, is mostly the team information. So mostly what the team has done. So if you have done some release, what kind of release, and which are in general the services that we provide. If it's, for example, only Power BI, or if it's data engineering, if it's, I don't know, Power Platform itself, etc., etc. And if there is specific people responsible for something, so that then it's easy to contact the people. This come back a bit on the topic of making it easy to contact people and to understand what the people is doing when you have a platform to own. You want to be easy to access, because this also, I think, the way that you can have more impact. I saw several use cases where users, they just always find a workaround instead of search for, let's say, for the developers that can help them, because they don't know there is a development team. So it's useful to make sure that people know that there is a team that can always support them. With this one, I will say that the 3 type of documentation for at the platform level is done. So to summarize, for me, the message I want to keep it short is mostly recognize the different user groups as different needs and journey on the platform. So keep always in mind there is no one single solution for everybody. Internet short links are simple solution for some use case. Ad hoc trainings are very, very important. So I would suggest to not skip. It also doesn't take so much time. And do good documentation. If it takes a lot of time, it's very useful, especially if divided into platform documentation and report documentation. So both of them should be mostly covered. I would say on my side is done. So I will leave you with, let's say, if you're interested in my LinkedIn or newsletter. And yes, feel free to ask any question.
Francesco, I will ask a few questions if it's okay for you.
Yes.
That maybe spans also content management or stuff like that, because you work in very big organizations. And so how do you manage, for example, in your organizations, the proliferation of reports? Like if you have citizen developers that develop, tens of reports, that sometimes are copies of reports over reports. And do you have a certification method, for example, to certify which are the reports that, you can trust and which ones are the ones that maybe you shouldn't, because this is just something that specific developer did? Yeah, if you can share some in that regard.
I think it's, for me, just we kind of keep 2 models: business, let's say, business workspace and IT workspaces. So if it's business workspace, they can do whatever they want. I mostly don't care. I can support them in writing whatever they want. IT support is what I care. Is managed by IT. I'm part of the IT organization, and we make sure this one is supported, etc. Follow the best practice, etc. We also give a third options that is a kind of semi-self-service. So the idea is the business can develop the reports and then they give to us as IT, and we make sure it follow all the best practice and that we can support. This is often very useful because it's funny, but Power BI reports are often created by interns or people that does rotation or they leave the team and so on, and then the business users just find that, okay, no one is able to maintain it anymore. Can you take care? So in this case, we try to have this kind of solution where even if they develop, they can give to us, and then we make sure it follow the best kind of best practice. So, but anyway, the final user have full freedom to do whatever. So we don't manage what they create, but they can decide what is more important for them. And if it's very important for them, then we can take care and make it, let's say zero downtime, or let's say not zero, but almost zero downtime, etc., etc.
It makes sense. It's something that I've seen as well in when I work with large companies where you cannot have the IT team preparing the reporting for the entire company, because that would mean stopping everyone from working, because you cannot possibly manage to satisfy the needs of all the business people that you have in the company. IT people do not even have the skills sometimes to understand what data needs to be analyzed, how it needs to be analyzed from those teams. So yeah, that's something that I've seen myself, that you basically enable users to create whatever they want on top maybe of shared semantic models. So you make sure that ETL and semantics are centralized, and then the reporting and additional DAX you do whatever you want. And then when the report is really, really used, and you can also use logs for that, you can say, okay, maybe this one can be promoted to some kind of official workspace that is certified and that, you know, everyone can use and leverage. It's not something that some random person developed, and you should be careful a little bit using it. So I have another question, but let me put on screen David's question from LinkedIn. Hi, Francesco. Where do you recommend to store the report one pages, list reports, and
yes, I can.
documentation?
So regarding the first question about the one pager and so on, so the report one pager for me is just a page of the reports. Just called documentation. It's just a page with text, nothing else. For list reports, platform documentation, etc., it really depends from your company. So what is available? I mean, conference, SharePoint, whatever you have, it's okay. So honestly, doesn't matter. And probably with AI, if you want a bit an automatic way, it depends about what is the best integrated way. About the life cycle management reports, I try to avoid, yes, those daily reports. So we kind of a cycle where we just check the usage metrics. So if we see that the report is not used at all or is used by very few people, we just go back to the people that develop, let's say, to the person that asked for the report and check what is the problem. Sometimes, I mean, it can be that it's very periodic, so they use on a quarterly basis and they didn't tell in the beginning. Maybe they told you like we need a daily refresh, but then they just use once per quarter. And but sometimes it just means that you got the wrong requirements. So you got the requirements for one person, but other people requirements are not there. So sometimes it's just easy to add new things and to make it more useful. And all what we don't get any answer or we see there is no usage for a longer time, we just delete it. Maybe we keep in the lower environments, but we just delete it.
Here's another point by Simone. Let me see if I can highlight this one as well. And Simone is asking if, well, he's saying regarding documentation, they struggle to define a standard. Word is bad for AI, but Markdown is challenging for the users. Yes, I agree. And we also struggle connecting the KPI shown in a report with the documentation. So keeping it, up to date. I guess that's the issue.
I mean, for me, it's a bit of, let's say, also new, this AI system for documentation. So we still have to kind of find what is the best way. It might be that also we just keep for, let's say, for internal documentation, it might be that we didn't define a standard yet. So it depends from the type of documentation. And yes, documentation, I think by default is difficult in general to maintain.
Yes, for sure. There are, by the way, if anyone is interested, for the semantic model in DAX, there are functions, the new info functions that have been introduced a while ago in DAX that allow you to basically query the definition of some objects inside of the semantic model that you have, relationships and aggregated columns, measures, and so on, and build the documentation of your DAX artifacts directly using other DAX functions inside of the Power BI report. The problem with those, and this is another question that I wanted to ask, is that, of course, they do not take into account everything that has been done before loading the data into the semantic model. Because, of course, those functions can only read an object and in Power BI and return information about the Power BI object. And my question would be for you also, how deep do you go inside of the documentation? Like, a field or a metric might be the result of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different layers of transformation, of joins, of unions, of casting, transforming the column, modifying, applying business logic. So where do you keep like the level of detail for that?
So again, we simplify a bit. In my case, if I create a measure into Power BI itself or into Power Query, is my responsibility to make it clear what was done. So what was the raw data, what is in the middle, and what is the final results. If it's something done before even reaching Power BI, so let's say the database level, then I just redirect to the documentation of the application itself. So I say the definition of this value is the same as you see from this application. So it depends where the calculation comes from. If it's from me, it should be 100% clear. If it's not from me, I make sure that, yes, the data source should be responsible for making the definition clear.
Which makes sense. So basically, you're saying everything that's just reproducing what is in the application, you're going to see exactly the same thing that you see there. When there is business logic applied at a certain level, then we say it explicitly, which makes sense to me as well. What about last thing? Maybe then we can close maybe a little bit earlier than usual. What about this AI like project that you're doing to try and automate documentation? Did you find it useful? What kind of challenges have you found in doing that? And if you have something that you'd like to share about this, because of course, using AI, generative AI for documentation, I think it's the big goal for everyone that works in this environment, in this sector. We would all like to not do documentation and let AI do it. Although I'm not completely in favor for this, documentation is useful in understanding how you build something, because sometimes you forget. But yeah, if you have something to share also in the regards of using AI and developing using Fabric APIs that you mentioned earlier.
I think, I mean, on my side, I don't know how much I can share because, again, everything I say should be kind of pre-approved. But overall, I can say some of the challenges come from the fact that documentation, again, is outdated by default. So the first challenge is to make sure that this LLM is recurrent, is kind of a flow. So every time there is a change, then you need to reflect again on the documentation, and this come again with standard topics that was coming before. And the second one is that not all the definition or business logic is defined at the same level. So sometimes database level, sometimes at Power BI level. So you need to put, say, the source of information is shared across different artifacts or storage, I don't know what you want to call it, and then putting together, then sometimes make it a bit more difficult. So those are the, let's say, the main challenge I foresee. Honestly, we are starting, but this is mostly what I foresee as potential challenge.
Okay, I see. Okay, fantastic. Then if there are no other questions from our audience, as I said, we can close a little bit earlier. I will just remind one last moment about our conference. I will remind again that there is an open call for speakers that closes this Friday, the end of this week. And then we will do the selection for the sessions that we will present at our community conference at the end of October. There is also still time to subscribe for sure, and there is also time to sponsor the event. This was our last event for this summer. Now we're taking a break for a month or so, maybe a little bit more. Thank you, Francesco, for being with us, sharing your experience. Thanks to everyone that was with us, even if it's the 29th of July, and I'm sure everyone would rather be on the beach or something like that, but some people were here following our event on both YouTube and LinkedIn. So that's it for us. Thanks again, Francesco, and thank you everyone for following our event, and see you after summer break. Have a nice summer and good vacations. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.